back, folks, the WP-Tonic Roundtable show, or should I say This Week in Golf? I just don't know. We've got a great panel. We've got a guest panelist as well. He seems very relaxed. He's been on the golf course. Like I say, I've got a great panel. We record this every Friday at 8:30. You can normally join us live on the WP-Tonic Facebook page and leave any comments, and I will reply. I love feedback about the panel show and the topics that we are discussing. So let's start off. Let's let the panel introduce themselves, and let's start off with our guest panelist, and that is Andrew Palmer. Andrew, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Sure. Hi, I'm Andrew Palmer, and I'm from elegantmarketplace.com, and I also just recently sold layoutscloud.com and pagebuildercloud.com as well, so I started those up, and I've got a little web agency in the UK called somebody'shero.co.uk, and it's me that has just come off the golf course on a Friday afternoon in the UK.
There we go. And I've got Stephen. Stephen, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's Stephen Souter from zipfish.io. We make WordPress really fast by focusing on optimizing servers and the code that's running on the servers.
That's great. I've got my great co-host, Adrian.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adrian. I am the CEO and founder of Groundhog. We help small businesses launch their marketing funnels.
That's great. And I've got Spencer. Spencer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning. Spencer Foreman from launchflows.com.
And I've got my friend John Locke. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
John Locke, doing SEO for manufacturing.
And I've got Sally. Sally, would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly. My name is Sally Getch. I am the WP fangirl and token female voice.
Not always. I normally get out.
Well, no. Last time I was on, we actually had a 50-50 panel.
We did. Let's go, before we go into the main stories of the week, I need to mention quickly a couple of my sponsors. My main sponsor is Kinsta Hosting. Kinsta is a premier WordPress hosting specialist. If you've got a WooCommerce site, you've got a learning management system, a large membership website, you need better hosting than what you can normally get on the market. I suggest that you go over to Kinsta. They've been hosting the WP-Tonic website for over 3 years. They've been a sponsor of the show for almost 3 years. It's been a great partnership. And what they offer is the latest versions of PHP, Google Cloud hosting, custom interface, and great 24/7 support that really works. If that sounds interesting for yourself or for your clients, go over to Kinsta and have a look at what they've got to offer. And if you do buy, please mention that you heard about them on the WP-Tonic show. Our other sponsor and a friend of the show is WP Fusion. WP Fusion really allows you to allow your WordPress website to communicate with a host of modern CRMs, from ActiveCampaign to Drip. The list is endless. I think they got up to almost 200 different CRMs that they communicate with. It really enables your WordPress website to have the kind of functionality that you get with ClickFunnels and some other SaaS cloud competitors to WordPress. It really allows your marketing to become really 21st century. There's a lot to it, but I suggest that you go over to WP Fusion and have a read of what is capable with this product. When you sense what it can achieve, you're going to be blown away, not only for yourself, but for your clients. So like I say, go over to WP Fusion, have a look, and you'll be blown away. So let's start with story one. Automattic launches malware vulnerability scanning service for Jetpack. This is from Justin Tadlock from the Tavern. So what do you reckon about this one, Spencer?
Well, this is the fox guarding the hen house, isn't it, really? First of all, I wouldn't impose Jetpack on my worst enemy, let alone the premium version. But ironically, to have them offering scanning and security services while they're basically peeking in your bedroom at night watching what you do is slightly ironic. But more importantly, back to the whole Automattic as a distracted VC-funded venture, which is there's 100 other things that could be fixed first. But boy, oh boy, let's throw in security, because security hasn't figured that one out, or iTheme security has, or any number of 12 other plugins and services haven't figured that out. Let's jam another thing into Jetpack and talk about it. I just find this an interesting sort of repetitive pattern now, which could be, by the way, irrelevant. Maybe this isn't a big deal. It's just that it was brought up by Justin in this article. But it just seems like with all the time they have to be working on these little pet projects, they could have fixed the accessibility, could have fixed the look and feel of Gutenberg, so it kind of is, you know, less hard on the eyes. Could have fixed a lot of other stuff, like at the core. But
yes, but you don't understand. Jetpack is the driver of WordPress growth.
It is
I think he understands
Trojan
quite well,
horses.
Jonathan.
You just don't understand.
You've got to
Well, I
monetize
get
stuff.
it.
You know,
You
if you
need-
get,
you
if you
need
get
to
300
listen.
million quid from Salesforce, let me tell you, I worked with Salesforce for a long time. They want their pound of flesh. So, you know, they're saying, right, how can we monetize this? We'll get $7 a month from every WordPress user, because you'll be the first, you know, install Jetpack automatically, do your security, sign up, boom, there you go. And it's instant monetization. And that's the unfair bit about WordPress, in my view. Then that, you know, it's all about community, and it's all about caring and sharing. It's all about open source. And then all of a sudden somebody invests 300 million on Automattic, and guess what? WooCommerce start advertising in the dashboard, and then somebody else starts advertising in the dashboard, and then Jetpack start doing what Blog Vault can do and iThemes can do, and like Spencer said, multiple suppliers that are actually used to it, and they've done it. WordFence, you know, all these people that focus on this one thing. Automattic, whoever's running it, has seen this, said, right, well, you know, if we can get $10 a month like Blog Vault can, then that's great, because we're going to get, you know, just 1 million users. What's $10 a month by 1 million users? You can work that out yourselves. It's easy, but you know, they're going to get it. If there are 1 million websites being built a day, and 30% of those are WordPress, and then 10% of those sign up to Jetpack, you've made your money. That's why they've done it. I don't know why people ever deny about. There's so many deniers about, you know, making money out of WordPress. Of course, they want to make money out of WordPress. That's what it's about. It's about making money.
It's not. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I'm not being argumentative to your point, but what I'm saying is, what's the problem is the do as we say, not as we do about open source. Should Andrew Palmer or any of your ventures come on out and advertise against people on a phone home method, or get right into their site, they'd be all inside your panties in no time flat. But gosh forbid anybody says anything about them doing it. Oh, it's just monetizing the platform. Well, it's not your platform. It's open source.
Exactly. And that is the point I was trying to make, which you made much more succinctly, because we're not allowed to do this kind of stuff. And thank goodness we're not, you know, because, you know, since all-in-one SEO got bought out, all you see, if you've got all-in-one SEO, you get this constant nagging. Do you like us? Do you love us? Tell us you love us, or upgrade, and blah, blah, blah. Constant nagging in the dashboard. And I think there should be an absolute rule that the only time a plugin can talk to you is when you're looking at that plugin.
Yeah. Oh, I think something's got to be done. What do you reckon, Adrian?
All right, so easy solution that if you don't like Jetpack, uninstall it. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah, but how do you know, Adrian? How do you know you're, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm going to do that a lot because you talk a lot of sense. But the point is that Jetpack, people don't know. If the normal user, if I install
Jetpack
WordPress,
serves a purpose for the uneducated WordPress user, which is absolutely fine. I don't think there's an issue with that. At Groundhog, what we started to do is I launched a new service called Mailhawk, and right away, before they go to WP Mail SMTP or offload SES or whatever, I'm like, don't bother with any of those. Use our service because we know it works and we control it, and we're going to make sure that we take care of you. And it's going to decrease our support, and it's going to decrease all this other stuff if you just use the one that we made. And at a higher level, that's what this is. And it's serving a large portion of the uneducated WordPress literate audience, which is absolutely fine. That market exists. And who don't want to spend the time to go look up other reliable solutions like WordFence, which is my security solution, and all of the other stuff. So I think it serves that purpose, while it's absolutely a Trojan horse, as everybody else describes, that's kind of why it's there. Because not everybody knows that they need a WordPress security solution and go get WordPress or go get security, right? People who don't know that are just going to get their WordPress sites hacked, and then that's going to look bad on WordPress and Automattic. So really, they're actually, in a sense, they're doing the greater community a service by making security more accessible to people who aren't as educated about the pitfalls of WordPress as the rest of us on this call are.
Okay. What do you reckon, Sally?
I looked at that article and the screenshot, and honest to God, I thought it said scanning your life instead of scanning your site, which actually seems kind of appropriate.
That's really...
I mean, the fox in the henhouse point is, if you do actually hire a bodyguard, that person has pretty intimate knowledge of what's going on with you. So I can almost see an argument that says, well, these people already know everything about us. But yeah, that doesn't mean I think it's a wonderful idea. I'm not a great Jetpack fan. There was just an issue somebody I saw had where some of their WooCommerce tax stuff wasn't working because, oops, there was a bug in Jetpack, and it depends on Jetpack. So
there you go.
But yeah, am I surprised? Not especially.
I'll just throw over to Stephen, then we'll go on to the next story. Stephen, just quickly, I'm not a really great fan of Jetpack. Lovely people, you meet them at WordCamps. They're always the nicest people, very chilled out. But as a plugin, it's one of the first things I remove from a client site that we're supporting, we're taking over, because I find it causes a lot of problems. Is it just because of Jetpack and the way it's been coded, or is it the concept of a multi-Swiss knife kind of plugin? Does that kind of concept normally cause problems?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the issue with Jetpack, is that it is like this one plugin that just does so many things. And when you try to do all those things, it's easy to have a bug in one little area or another little area. Like when we're talking about security plugins, like they just do security, or you talk about e-commerce plugins that just do e-commerce type stuff. But Jetpack plugs into everything. I don't think Jetpack inherently is like this terrible, evil plugin, and it solves a lot of problems for people who don't want to have to sit there and do a lot of research. So it has its space, but it's just large. And when you become that big, you just can't do everything as well as you would want to be able to do it. There'd be bugs and stuff like that.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Right. So I don't think it's a terrible thing, but let's take Jetpack and move it out of Automattic and say it was some other company that has this e-commerce solution called WooCommerce, and now they created this Jetpack thing. And I don't think we would have as much animosity toward Jetpack if it was a third-party developer. But because it's being ran by people who also influence the
I don't know.
core
Look
of
how we
WordPress.
feel about Yoast.
Yeah, fair enough.
But how do we feel about Yoast? I need to know this.
No, we're not going down. We're not going down there.
Carry on, Steve.
We're not going down that road. Right.
That's a whole hour-long tangent there.
I got to tell you, I love Jetpack. I love it.
It's not inherently like a terrible thing, but it's the power that Jetpack has because they have the resources. Like think about something like Elementor. Elementor can get away with a lot of stuff that you or I probably can't get away with because their whole phone home solution, because they're huge and they have the user base, they have the money, they're contributing to this ecosystem. And if we can build a company like that, we could also build our own Jetpack and probably do whatever we wanted to do too. So I would say that the challenge is if we don't like Jetpack, right? Build something as big as them and take them on, I mean, that's possible.
That's true enough. I love Jetpack for a number of reasons. I love the publicized bit. I think the integration with WooCommerce is great. I don't do WooCommerce much these days. I'm more of a Shopify guy. But I mean, Jetpack is ultimately configurable. So you can take out the lazy loads. You can take out all the stuff that you don't need. And
and then you have no plugin.
Well, you do, but you don't. You know, there's certain things about Jetpack, and I could go through the list, but I won't bore you. But I do. I really love Jetpack, and I love the guys. I love the people that run.
Yeah,
Jetpack.
they're very nice.
They're really good.
I have very
It's
little.
a good it is a good plugin, and it gets told off far too often. I think that's what Stephen said.
It serves a purpose for the people that are not currently on the
Exactly.
Rightio, let's go on to story 2. Google now highlights search results directly on web pages. What did you think of this one, John?
Yeah, I think this is really interesting because if Google can do this, so basically what they're saying is if you're typing in a search and then there's some sort of snippet, then you click it, it goes directly to that and it highlights that part. So obviously they can highlight something that's on this the page that you're clicking to, and they can manipulate the HTML on that page to highlight it. So one of the things that I've been saying for about a year is that Google actually has a methodology, because I've heard them say this before, that they have a methodology of tracking the search experience end to end. This probably means also that they can see how people interact with the page. And this is just, to me, like one more confirmation that they can do that.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, like, okay.
Know what you're doing.
Yeah, they know what you're doing. Okay, because here's the thing. Here's what I have seen. I mean, this story is interesting too, but this is just kind of confirmation of this. But what I'm talking about is they cannot use Google Analytics to effectively determine rankings. They don't use it at all because half the websites on the planet do not have Google Analytics installed. They use another methodology. And most people that believe in this type of thing, or have heard them say that they can track this like end to end, believe that they're using Chrome. Now this thing, I haven't seen this in a while, but I usually use Firefox. But just, word to the wise, if they can manipulate stuff like on the page, whether it's highlighting a piece of text or whatever from the search, that tells you that they have some input of what's happening from the Google page onto the page that you click onto. Because if they did not have some sort of control, that wouldn't be able to happen. Do you follow?
Yeah, I do, kind of.
Yeah. I do. It's almost conspiracy theory stuff though, John, isn't it?
No.
It's kind of like Google knows everything. But I mean, how many Chrome users are there to Safari and Firefox? And I know lots of developers use Firefox.
It's got the biggest market share, not only in the US, but in worldwide.
Sure.
It's over 60%, and also because they use the same engine. But to John's point, and Andrew, I think you probably recognize this if you said it, they absolutely know what you're doing in the Chrome browser, and the evidence is not only highlighted by this, but like when you do things, for example, could be through interaction with Facebook or one of the end users, but they're interfaced with other companies sharing the data about user behavior. So if you're in your environment, not doing anything on Facebook, not doing anything, and you just go searching in Chrome for, I don't know, a bicycle or a feminine hygiene product or a male deodorant, and then you go to Facebook, magically an ad shows up on Facebook, like instantly. And there's no possible explanation for that, but that Chrome is immediately reporting your behavior in the same way that ad retargeting works, from the Chrome browser to the network to the end user who's paying for the data.
But you're searching on Google, which is already doing that.
Not even searching, just browsing. Like if I was literally going to pages, I've tested this because it's weird and scary when it happens, but then you see it and you realize what's happening. And by the way, I like Gabriel Weinberg's product, DuckDuckGo, is amazing too, along with Ad Blocker. But when you use those, you see a completely different experience. But if you're on native Chrome, search or browse any topic, then go to Facebook. And I can absolutely guarantee you, one way or the other, you will see the results of your search soon.
The URL bar in Chrome is the Google search bar. I'm not sure if you've ever gone to the Google homepage and you started typing something in the big Google search bar on the Google homepage. It just redirects you to the Chrome URL bar. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. So any searches that you or any like URLs that you type in directly, or even if you just like think that you're browsing, it's all the same technology. Like Chrome is Google at this point. You can still use Chrome without the Google influence, though, if you use Chromium, which is the open source browser that Chrome is based on.
Or even, DuckDuckGo is good as the homepage instead, and it hijacks that browser URL thing. And I noticed a distinctly different. Now, I want to say something that's interesting. If you're a developer and you're doing development stuff, and you like things like one of those developer sites, like I can't think of one right now, but where you get all the answers. If you search natively
Stack
in Google,
Overflow.
Right.
Stack Overflow. I want to say Slack. Stack Overflow. If you search in Chrome natively, you get all the developer answers. If you go into DuckDuckGo, you get no answers. And I think that's indicative. There must be some relationship between certain websites participating in the Chromium or the Chrome search engine versus DuckDuckGo, which is just matching keywords, because the results are like 100 results here and 0 results here. And those kind of behaviors, again, are not surprising, but I think we should all be just transparent about the fact that when you are looking at your Chrome browser, you are participating in whatever scheme they've got going for knowing everything you've done. And okay, fair enough.
On the highlight topic, I want to say that I think it's a brilliant idea, because a lot of the answers that you get are from like Stack Overflow or forums, especially when you're in the developer community, and you spend like 20 minutes scrolling through like 115 replies for the one reply that might have the answer. So having that little bit of highlighted text in order to just say, here it is, I think is a great idea and would save me a lot of time. And be damned to my privacy.
I think it's an interesting.
We've lost it anyway.
I think it's an interesting.
Yeah, what privacy?
SEO stuff and content. Like if I have a blog and I've written a bunch of content on it, and I have like strategically placed like CTA type stuff, like I'm trying to generate something from this content that I've produced. Like this is just another way that Google's kind of circumventing that. So like it's better for the end user, and I get that. But for the people that are creating the actual content and the value, it's a little bit shortchanging them, because people will hop their site, get what they need, and bounce off. And so what? The person's on their site for 25 seconds, and then that counts as a bounce. Like, what does that do for their SEO? Like, it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out, I think.
We've talked before about how more and more searches result in not actually going to a website.
So that's actually, Steve, you bring up a good point, because we do a lot of like online searching for recipes, and we'll type in the recipe and we see that the top, the recipe snippet, the structured snippet or the structured data from the recipe with, whatever recipe WordPress plugin they have installed. Right. And I'm like, great, this kind of looks like what we're looking for, but the whole recipe isn't in the snippet. So we have to click through the site. And then the first 2/3 of the article, of the recipe article, is their experience in Cambodia of how they like found this recipe. And I'm like, I don't give a damn. I'm scrolling, like I'm just like scrolling. I miss it. I have to scroll back up. So for the end user, this is certainly like, fantastic for me, and I can just like immediately skip the whole like prelude to the recipe.
I mean, I have run into that kind of situation where it's like, get to the effing point. So
I think you must have read one of my blogs. Let's get on to story 3. Automattic invests 4.6 million in new vector creators of metrics open standard. Oh, decentralized communication.
Automattic is getting into the matrix.
Yeah, Sarah. This is Sarah Goodin. I think you need to shorten your title, Sarah. That was a little bit long-winded, but there we go. What did you reckon about this one, Spencer? Oh, he's muted. You muted yourself, Spencer.
Sorry. I feel like this is a little bit of a deja vu on the first one, where again,
Matrix deja vu. Yay.
Automattic. Oh, there you go. Yeah. I know this steak isn't real, but I still enjoy it. They're investing a lot of money in a lot of stuff that I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this technology. I really don't know what this has to do with the core of WordPress and the CMS and the rest. It's tangential at best. It's not a front end or a rear end or a, entry system or a JNote.
Well, I the thing I heard is basically is Automattic kind of going after Slack, or they seeing this as, if not a public everywhere else says Slack a replacement within WordPress, that the official WordPress community on Slack, is that going to get moved over to this matrix thing? And I have not heard anything about it, but that is the speculation.
That's the part. Like, in other words, imagine you told your investors, and again, taking venture capital, you just got to throw it against the wall, see if it sticks, which is what this is doing. But imagine you say to investors, I need $100 million or whatever to do A or B, right? You put it into your public filings, you put it in your documents, if it's private, and you essentially say, I'm going to do this. Now, Automattic was presumably going after WordPress, which is a CMS, to do certain things. All these other things they're throwing money at are at best tangential to that purpose. And when you think about how much money and time, well, hold on. If you think of it like the Automattic venture capitalists just want to make money, okay, fine, it makes perfect sense. But if you talk about it from the standpoint of where the nexus was, the original starting point, it was where WordPress, an open source software community, and how do these things relate to WordPress? Now, Jetpack, sure, that's related. Hosting, sure, that's related. What are they going to do with this? Maybe they got some grandiose idea. They're going to bring in like a Slack or a Discord competitor and make it part of WordPress and monetize it.
Well, or is it that they're going to make it part of Salesforce?
There you go. But you see what I'm saying? In other words, like the point isn't to begrudge them how they spend their money. They can spend their money on whatever. But when, our old friend Morton had all that aggravation for bringing up things that he brought up, or our other friends about accessibility, or the Gutenberg, or all the core stuff, you start to wonder again, where is our tax money being spent? And it's not being spent on anything really related to the core purpose, which might, by the way, could be fine. Because again, I'm putting my bet on somebody like Elementor to come and fork WordPress, go off to their own business model, which is about that.
So Andrew, do you think this is a sign of a company that's a little bit defragmented a little bit?
Absolutely not. I see this as a real grab of if you've read the whole article, hopefully you have. They've got Tumblr. They want an internal chat system. What they want to do is make WordPress a total ecosystem. So you can have chat, you can have social media, you can have invoicing, you can have CMS, blog posting.
Yeah, but doesn't that end up as another big example of my mind's gone blank, of Jetpack? Isn't that
that is their, that I think they're, and I'm not going to lightly say this. Matt Mullenweg wants world domination. Make no mistake of that. And this is all part
we
of
have
his
noticed,
plan,
yes.
right? So this is all part of that. If you have your ecosystem, the power of Facebook, right? Because look at how big all the Facebook groups are, how big Facebook is, how big Twitter is. They're all thinking, how can we actually get bigger and better? And how can we consolidate everything that we've got into one massive platform? And that's all WordPress are trying to do. And Automattic.
I'm not sure they're aiming for better. I think they're so busy aiming for bigger, they don't care.
Better is a judgment call, isn't it? Is it better? Is it worse? Who cares? But it's different. So, but they're aiming for world domination. This is part of it.
I disagree that that's a successful avenue based upon other companies who have tried to be doing.
I didn't say it was successful, Spencer. I didn't say.
As a difference of strategy, for example, when you argue about Facebook and so forth, sure, once they were a multi-billion-dollar company, they bought things. But before they did that, they were known as the thing that did one thing best, and they already had the audience. Here, the problem is that they have an Achilles heel that you didn't mention, but I think, again, you'll acknowledge. Unlike closed platforms, the Facebooks, the Twitters, the Google, and everybody else, who control every aspect of their code base and users, this is open source software. Anybody can run away with it and clone the core of their business that attracts the user base anyway. And so my conclusion is you can't act without pure focus and with an acknowledgement of who your user base is on doing these things, because what you end up doing is buying a bunch of unrelated pieces.
Well, I think there's in the article they did say this is kind of for WordPress.com. you know, so it's not necessary for WordPress as a whole. Then WordPress.com is a full-on private infrastructure. It's a SaaS. Thanks, Adrian. God, thank God for you. But there's honestly, it's WordPress.com is as big can be. It's a massive company, and it kind of just it operates under the radar, and it charges up to, I think there's some companies out there paying upwards of $500,000 a month to host their stuff on WordPress.com. So don't be misled. I mean, I know 3 companies that are paying 20 grand a month on WordPress.com because it is
for the VIP
solution.
service. Yes,
yeah,
which is somewhat different from the generic WordPress.com.
For sure, and that's what this is all about. You know, this is they're going to have their own little ecosystem in WordPress.com. Make no mistake.
All right, let's end there and let's go for our break, folks. We'll be back. I've got 3 other great stories. The panel seems energized. I think it's going to be a great discussion. We'll be back in a few moments. We're coming back. We'll be discussing all things WordPress and other stuff. The panel seems quite energized, but it's great stuff. On to story 4, SEMrush selling links that are against Google guidelines. And John Locke was part of this story as well. Yeah. Tell us about this story, John.
All right. Now, look, I'm just going to say, if I hadn't, I'm not saying that it was all me. I tweeted out what I saw. If it hadn't been me, it would have been somebody else would have said it for sure. SEO, the people in the SEO community, they are brutal. They call shit out. And all I did was just tweet a tweet. I saw something come in my email and, put it in there. It said, SEMrush is selling links, make it make sense. And it started going viral. And then SEMrush, they replied to me and then, trying to tell me it was all white hat and it's all, no worries here. But then
then the voice of God answered as well.
That's right. But, nothing to see here. Move along.
But yeah, so anyway, John Mueller from Google responded and said hey, no, this is a link scheme. Well, long story short, by the end of the day, they decided to push this service back, and they said it's coming soon instead of offering it. Basically,
it'll be coming soon, all right.
Yeah,
as soon as we figure out another workaround.
Yeah, the CEO sent out an email to all the customers at SEMrush saying that people were accusing them of selling links, and that's not what was happening. But the links that they were building, basically they'd go to people that you would you get the emails all the time. You guys own websites.
Sponsored posts.
Sponsored posts.
We'll pay you
these are
$20.
the people. These are the people that they were using to build these links. And
you get 3 of those a day.
Yeah. I know, but they were the example sites, and so these would be the most squeaky clean examples that they could come up with. These are basically well-known pay-to-play sites, and basically all they were doing is marking it up by 5%. Now, here's the thing that makes this a dirty link, and I'll shout out to Tom Rayner of Raynernomics, who also he bought some of these links, ran them through their link audit tool, and they came back as toxic. So,
wow.
Go explain that one.
What's toxic mean?
Toxic links is a thing that's in SEMrush that gets people all worried and panicked and stuff. And basically, they go run to disavow links, which, by the way, never disavow a link unless you are engaged in black hat activity. Don't disavow links because it does nothing, and Google automatically just doesn't use that as part of their formulation. It doesn't count against you. It doesn't count for you. Unless you have a manual penalty or something like that, don't disavow, ever. But anyway, basically these links that they're selling were flagged as toxic by their own tool. What makes it really tricky is the wording they used in this service, which is basically just give us the anchor text, which is the words in the link, and the page that you want to link to, and then we'll do the rest. We'll write an article, which I call a link deployment object, basically placed link deployment object, and then we'll publish it. And the email that the CEO sent out, I got it like last night. It basically said that the quality of the links that they were auditing just weren't up to par, and they were going to pause in the service until they could get like better ones. So
they did put their hands up though. They put their he did put his hands up.
Did.
I read
they got caught. Well,
everybody's.
That's what I'm saying. The SEO community they'll call BS out. They won't pretend that they're not eating a shit sandwich. So yeah, that's basically the story. I want to shout out one other tweet that was in there that said, because they took 40 million in VC, and this is another case of people taking VC and doing something stupid. Somebody in this thread on Twitter said this is like a CBD company taking like a $40 million investment and then going and deciding to sell weed on the corner. It just makes no sense. So
yeah, but this has been as we were having a chat yesterday. Moss was in the same. Moz was in the same. They took venture capital. Well, they took it at early stage, and that really led in the end to the founder Fishman and his mother being kicked out of the company because as a profitable private company it makes sense, but as a how much apart as a niche product Rush SEM is, it's never going to be able to break out, in my opinion, from the niche group of people that get value from it.
Yes, and God forbid that venture capitalists invest in something that would like merely be a continuous, profitable, slowly growing, steady return on your investment. If it's not promising you 10 times what you've put in, well, forget it.
Within 5 years.
Yes.
So and I've resisted venture capital. I had a pretty big printing company, and we had Kleinwort Benson back in the day. We're talking 30 years ago, coming to me and saying, we want to put 3 or 4 million into your company because we think you can do great things. And I just said, no, it's okay, thanks very much, because VCs want their pound of flesh, right? So you've got to be careful. I'm not sure that Rand Fishkin's company Moz, I don't think they ever made a profit, Jonathan, and I was always very wary of Moz.com because of some of the advice that they gave and the Friday and stuff. And it was all a bit grey and a bit kind of bland and, common sense kind of stuff. John will tell you, he's an SEO, proper SEO person, but my SEO journey has been fantastic. And that's how I made my early money in SEO. And I've always said content is king, and now look at this, we've got Bert coming out saying, guess what, content is king. So it's all about that, really.
So Spencer, what do you think led them? Is it just that they've got this venture money and they just because this whole thing just seems madness? It must have been discussed at the highest level at some degree, and it's obvious that it's a bad idea from the beginning to the end, and it's really it's the kind of stuff that you just wonder what the fault was. There any thought process? Because it's I don't want to overstate it, but it has damaged their brand to some extent, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's an outcropping of the same problem that we were just talking about with Google. And which, although again, I respect very dearly what John does with an SEO specialty, the fact that SEO is becoming a bit not what it was, if not to say irrelevant, because it's pay to play. Search is no longer like 100 people trying to be found. It's a quadrillion people all gaming to be found when the game is rigged by the casino. And if you're a company that's built on giving expertise out to people for money on how to game the casino, well, I know some guys are going to take you in the back room, and if you win a little too much money, you're not going to come back to the casino, or maybe you'll sell links. And, it becomes like the Wild West of Las Vegas a little bit. I think that's what's happening, is they all just figured out, look, how can we continue to make money the way we were hand over foot when the game is basically pay Google money or not? Well, here's how. We'll figure out a way to start selling our valuable links to you. Oh, we got caught. Well, we didn't mean it. Sorry. You know, that's all that's happening. And I'm not saying SEO is going to completely go away, but I do find it really ironic that when you know that if you spend $100 on an ad, it actually will get you something versus the pretend spend $100 on an SEO specialist who will try to get you organically to the top when everyone else is playing the pay for play. You're going to eventually figure out like you're going to go broke before you get seen. So
$100 in paid ads can do a good,
you know what I mean? You know,
jump start for SEO though.
$1,000 a day or something. I mean, you whatever the number, you can't get anywhere by pretending it's 2003. And if you just work hard at your SEO and your metadata, that you're magically going to pop up on page one. Because
there is if you put a year and a half into it, if you put a year and a half into it and you choose your keywords extremely carefully and you do all of your due diligence, in a year and a half you will at least get to number 10 spot.
I mean, I can get
but yeah, it's like, you know, as we've said, like SEO is not a condiment. It's not something you can just like sprinkle on your website and presto. And advertising gets you a much faster return. And I think most people, John seems to have had to turn off his camera for a moment, but I think most people who are SEO experts usually advise a combination of your sort of content, etc., plus advertising.
I can only go by my own experience, you know, and I'm going to be open here. You know, about 18 months ago when I decided to really focus on learning management systems and the maintenance and the building of them, the traffic levels to the WP-Tonic website was about 5,000 unique visitors per month. Last month, it was 26,000. But that was hiring a professional copywriter and working with her and doing a lot of SEO research on articles that we could attack. It was possible to get into the top 3. And sometimes we have, and sometimes we haven't. And then going back to the articles that haven't achieved and improving them and adding video and revising them and spending a lot of time on a group of articles that appeal to the target audience.
But then balance that against a spend with whatever you're spending with her, and balance that against an AdWords or a Facebook campaign spend, and what the return on investment is of that.
It's been considerably cheaper to do it, but it's just a time lag.
Has it been? Yeah, but it's not time. But how much is your time, Jonathan? That's what I'm trying. That's what I say to customers. How much is your time? How much time do you have to wait? And
right. I mean, the thing is, if you're buying the ads, you know, there has to be something for people to see when they get there that's relevant to the ad. So you're still going to have to do something about your content writing.
And I would argue one thing that you're just not paying attention to, but I think you'll agree, is just the source of this. When you put out 500 podcasts and you become friendly on a business or otherwise relationship with everybody in the WordPress community, what's really happening is you're seeding your brand and your attention throughout their ecosystems of people. And that's where your traffic is coming from. And I can tell you right now, I can get almost any idea I want on the front page pretty quickly by doing that tactic alone. Making friends with somebody who's already got a huge audience and having them say something about me will get me immediately on a topic to the front of some search result, because I'm essentially borrowing their credibility. And that's what the root of this whole gimmick was. I mean, you can do it legally by making friends with the right people, but they were trying to sell their influence.
But then you have to take the time to actually develop a relationship. Oh my God.
I know, God forbid.
And be nice.
What's relationships? Oh my godfathers. Odd Story 5. WooCommerce is testing a block-based cart checkout. What do you reckon about this one, Stephen?
I think it's great. I mean, finally, they're like looking into how can people mess around with cart stuff and checkout flow stuff. I mean, I'm surprised that it's taken them this long to realize that that's like the #1 frustration with anybody trying to build something. But like launch flows, like Spencer's, you know, been solving this problem for a while already, and there's already some solutions out there. But it's nice to see that WooCommerce is starting to like pick up on that a little bit. And it's only based in blocks, but I'd love to know what Spencer's thought is. Like, do you think that'll open it up to being able to edit and change things even easier and better in like third-party systems like yours.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I looked at this. I saw, we were talking about this last week. Adam, made a big fuss about Cadence using the block editor from Gutenberg. But when you actually look at this, and by the way, you've had him on the show, but Jonathan Wald is somebody I'm very close with. And I talked to him because he's tapped in along with his brother, who is at the bottom of the comments. What's going on with the automaticians and WooCommerce? When you read underneath the line, or between the lines here, it's not changing the checkout components. It's just simply adding a few visual tchotchkes onto the side of what's already there. In other words, oh, I can show a shipping calculator. Oh, I can hide the costs that are already there. So in a weird way, this is not that dissimilar to some other of these funnel products that don't change the checkout components or allow you to visually move them around. It just takes the same tax form and it just turns on some things and from CSS standpoint, lays them out in like maybe a little different side by side. Where I think it's really hard, and why launch flows, I'm not trying to say this like the only thing, but why launch flows is slightly unique, is I decided that the problem to solve was how to actually use various parts of the checkout or not, and then move them around with Elementor. And so that's the difference here. I know somebody will end up doing that, hopefully at WooCommerce. But when you actually read Mike Jolly's notes, which I, like a Bible, have to look at all the time for WooCommerce, you'll see that the mindset of the WooCommerce team itself are developer minds. They do not understand marketing or why people use WooCommerce at all. Like literally.
The problem with software is that it's built by developers.
I'm saying you have people for a year or two arguing with Mike Jolly about why, instead of offering default WooCommerce as a Home Depot, that it should be offered more like a sales funnel tool or something. And he does not get it, doesn't want to get it. They just don't care. They care about the functionality, and they're thinking like really amazing developers, all the intricacies of how stuff holds together. So my belief is that this will eventually happen globally, but it's like same thing like trying to get the Gutenberg editor aligned. It's going to take a long time. This is interesting, but it's deceptively irrelevant to changing the process. This is on the par with a theme made like Avada. Avada has a thing that changes the look and feel of WooCommerce checkout, but it doesn't change the core pieces of it. It just sort of makes it look different.
Yeah, but every WooCommerce, I've got Elegant Marketplace. We sell checkouts. We sell layouts to say you can use a Divi layout in your checkout. And every time I've used or taken away the WooCommerce or even the Easy Digital Downloads checkout and replaced it with my own checkout, the sales go up. It's that simple, because it looks nicer, it works better, and it's just easier for people to buy stuff. And that's why things like launch flows work and whatever else there is out there.
I'm being nuanced here. The difference I'm saying is when you do what you just said, the WooCommerce shortcode is essentially putting the same things on the page. That's agreed, right? In other words, wherever you put that WooCommerce shortcode, it spits out the billing fields, checking fields, the payment. Sure. Okay, those cards are on the table. What these things are doing is leaving all the same cards and just sort of changing the color, maybe arranging them a little bit, just moving them in plain view. What I tried to do with launch flows, which was slightly different, is I do a magic trick. I go, look over there. And I take away the cards you're not using, allow you to modify the cards you are using, and then poof, within a half a second, when the deck is back on the table, it functionally and mechanically has different pieces in different places. And I think that's something that isn't hard to do. It's all jQuery, but nobody is really doing that with this kind of stuff. They're just simply saying, okay, with what's there, what do we want to show? And at the end of the day, it doesn't really make a difference. We address the products as well, the behavior of the products. Lots of things in WooCommerce can do this, but all of them, and you in a Divi Marketplace, by the way, when we used to, there was a guy that had one of these plugins for Divi Marketplace that it was like a series of functions. I forget what it was called, but it was like 100 different really neat functions. And you just turned them on with checkboxes, right?
Yeah, it was called Divi Switch.
Divi Switch. We do conceptually the same thing. If you look out there, there's 20 different really key things that plugins do independently for WooCommerce. we blend them together into one system. So you can control the products, the checkout pieces, so that you essentially don't have to fuss with your theme. At the end of the day, though, it's a good idea.
Your webinar.
I'll be sending the
Send me the bill.
The invoice.
I'll be sending you the invoice. And then
Yeah, but I think it's fair.
right.
It's fair that Spencer, gives that example, because the
yeah,
problem with any checkout is that it is just sometimes so hard to see what's around. Right? Look at the standard WooCommerce checkout.
Oh, God.
To even put a coupon in it. Where is it? Where's the coupon? Where do I put my coupon code?
Yeah, I don't know why it's in that freaking notice thing at the top. That's a silly decision.
What is going on? Or it's right at the bottom at the checkout, and also if it doesn't grab the CSS.
Well, I think maybe we can see the problem just in how difficult it is to buy anything from WooCommerce.com, right? These are not people who understand you need to make it easy for folks to give you money.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of, to wrap it up, I think it's really kind of linked to what you said, Andrew, about our great leaders' ambition for world dominance. That's great, but it has a tendency to lead to lack of focus. And I think you can some ways see that lack of focus in WooCommerce and some of the decisions that have been made around that key product over the past 18 months. And also the lack of progress in UX design and other features that would, I think in some key areas, not all, it's fallen behind Shopify. That's probably one of the reasons why you choose to use Shopify and not WooCommerce.
I choose to use Shopify because it's really, really easy to use for me, and I can build themes in Shopify because Liquid is really easy to understand as well. And also, I've got developers that build the themes, and I can go in and amend them. But I want to go back to Mike Jolly. I've spoken with Mike Jolly years and years ago. He's a great guy, really accessible and everything. But from a UX and UI perspective, who has used WP Jobs Manager? Right?
Oh,
you ever heard of that?
A long time ago, maybe.
Right. Developed by Mike Jolly, and it ain't pretty. It works perfectly, but it's just not pretty, and it's really hard to make pretty as well. But it is a perfect little plugin. It's free and everything, and that's why I like my UK guy, brilliant guy, but not UX. Some WooCommerce need to get a designer in. Really do. Really just need to get a designer in and say, right, what can we do to make this
they possibly need
flows.
To work with more actual end users.
Well, look at Thrivecart, look at Launch Flows, look at the other guys that are doing all these things. You can actually design your whole sales funnel within that, and that's what WooCommerce needs to do. You need to get that. They need to get that right, and they never have, and I don't think they will. Right, because they're not focused on it.
Well, let's go on to the last story. And some universities are about to be the walking dead. And this comes from Scott Galloway, a commentator and an educator and a business consultant that I listen to quite a lot. What did you think of this one, John? Because I think he was talking a lot of sense about what the pandemic, the virus, how this is going to affect upper education. I kind of agreed with a lot of the things he was saying. What did you think, John?
Well, it makes a lot of sense. I actually have a client on my roster right now that is in this position. They're a school that is going through this, higher education. I think a lot of people are, some of the schools out there that basically are selling prestige, like Ivy League schools, I think they will stay intact. But I think
they will expand what they seem to suggest.
Yeah, it's going to be the same. But but I think a lot of other places, I think it's going to change.
Eddie, I'm sorry to interrupt. The only thing that I think could save the kind of middle state-based university is a lot of states kind of in the state regulator, in the Congress, in the state, like Nevada, there's a lot of credos of having a state university. They say it generates a lot of economic activity. They never provide any figures for that, but they say it. So, you know, when it looks like an actual state university, do you think a lot of these state governments are going to feel that they're going to almost be blackmailed to subsidize them, you know, to some degree, even more?
Well, I think, you know, like state universities.
Yeah, I don't think states have the money to be
No.
blackmailed into being subsidized for anything,
No.
because right now they're all busy
Well,
cutting their subsidies for everything they subsidize now.
No, well, like say in California, like you have the UC system, which is like like UCLA or USC, and then you have state universities, which would be like Sac State or Cal Poly State or something like that. The ones that are like university level, they subsidize using stuff like sports to make more money. So it doesn't necessarily need that, but like all the kind of schools that are like underneath, you know, that elite level, I think there is going to be a shakeup because they might decide that it's more profitable to have virtual classes, or at least offer them as a core thing. So that might be the way of the future, because, you know, with everybody in quarantine from the COVID phenomenon, you know, it's become a necessity because you can't just stop that. You know, they can't stop their stream. So a lot of them switched to online that had not previously done that. But
yeah. So Spencer, do you think the pandemic, you know, I think this was happening naturally, but I'm just trying to see some of the medium to long term effects of the pandemic. I think what Scott was saying, because of the pandemic, I think this process that was happening anyway is going to be accelerated. And a lot of these middle universities are just, their business model, I just see it evaporating in front of us.
Yeah. Well, I have this conversation often because I have college age kids, and also having gone to University of Illinois, which cost me $600 a year, which was like a drop in the bucket. I had a couple businesses that was like chump change. That the world we live in was that the business model around universities modified during the Bush years, where the ability to give out like popcorn loans to people for their education turned into this gigantic like real estate bubble. And then they backed it up with, you can't discharge it in bankruptcy. So as soon as anybody from anywhere was sold the bullshit that a state school or an Ivy League school or any college education will buy you a ticket to your dreams, the schools themselves went on a bender of just raising their rates. So a state school like University of Illinois or ISU or something that was $600, it went from like $6,400 for a full education to $260,000, I checked, to go to University of Illinois, a state school that used to be Tom Cruise's backup in Risky Business. Now, is it sustainable? No. Here's why. The generation that I'm in, Gen X, and for a couple years thereafter, was sold and believed, and it was sort of true, the fairy tale that if you had a degree, it was a ticket to a job. And in fact, it was a really high-paying job in some cases, like in the mid-90s. Today, that has never been more untrue. The generation of my children, my oldest children, is left with this legacy of all that shit going to pot. And now you've got a situation where online has been proven to be the better way to learn. And it's also been proven that all the entrepreneurs are people that dropped out or self-taught or did skill-based education. So it is a very, very hard thing, other than the guilt feeling of parents my age, to sell this next generation to spend $260,000 to go to a school where when you're done, you get an archaeology degree that you will be paying for the next 40 years with no possibility to pay it back, versus get an online degree from one of these, you know, University of New Mexico for $500, or do a skill-based job, or join a startup, or create a skill-based apprenticeship of doing things that used to be looked down on, but now are great, like in the trades. And that's where it's going. This whole system will implode on its own weight, and you will see, like NYU actually started doing it, and some other University of Chicago did it. The bigger universities are going to start giving away tuition. They're going to start giving away, you can get all of our classes for free if your family makes less than a certain amount of money. And it's the only way to salvage any semblance of the facilities that they have.
I think the
I've
one
got-
caveat.
Oh, sorry.
to
Let Stephen.
Steve, yeah.
I would just say the one caveat to that is like things that are heavy science based that need labs and really expensive equipment, like if you need to use wind tunnels or crazy microscopes or whatever, like that still oftentimes has to take place in a class in a university.
Like a doctor, for sure.
Yeah, like there's some things that can never break away from that, or we haven't figured out how to do that yet in the online world. But I just think that's like the one caveat to that. But if you're going to do business or something, like sure,
right,
online
and there's I mean, part of what people sell your Ivy League education on is the connections you're going to make and the relationships you're going to have. And you do see, I mean, yes, we see a lot of entrepreneurs who dropped out. We also see a lot of entrepreneurs who like their entire startup team is the folks they went to Stanford with.
Absolutely.
And so yet I don't know, I guess I made the wrong connections when I went to an Ivy League university because I just hung out with people I liked. But there is some value in being there. But I used to do alumni interviews for applicants to my alma mater, and I always had really mixed feelings because it's like I had a great experience. I value it a lot, even though like what I studied does not have anything directly to do with what I do for a living. But my father was able to pay for it without loans because, even the Ivy Leagues back in the day when Spencer and I were at university did not cost as much money. And it's like, I cannot suggest it's worth spending a lifetime in debt.
No, it was just that Scott in this interview, which I highly recommend the listeners and viewers watch, it's the profitability of these courses. He said, starting, he said there's nothing more profitable than some of these courses and the money these universities are. I think it's totally
My daughter
immoral. But the UK, unfortunately, the UK or England has decided to go down this US model to some extent, haven't they, Andrew?
I don't know. Well, not quite. Nearly. I mean, for years now, it's been it's cost £9,000 a year to go to university. Basically, it's pretty much a fixed rate. There's Oxford and Cambridge might be 15,000 a year, but it's you get a student loan and you don't start paying it back until you start earning more than £24,000 a year. But my daughter is 17 and she's doing her A levels. Didn't want to go to sixth form college physically for whatever reason. And so since last September, when she was starting sixth form college for A levels, this is pre-university, it's cost £2,750 for her to go to sixth form college, but online. And she's doing chemistry. So there's Stephen, there are certain things in chemistry that you can't do. So for the chemistry parts of it, the actual physical experiments of chemistry and the exams as well, they're all in a physical location. But she's prepared now to, depending on how the pandemic, because it's hit us quite hard as well, the pandemic, people in America don't actually realize, we've had 40,000 deaths.
People in America hardly realize the rest of the planet exists.
Yeah, fair shout. No offense meant, but it's not just about America. But so we're suffering as well, and we've just come out of lockdown. We are still in a kind of a lockdown. We're still not meant to go out really if we don't need to.
You naughty boy! You just couldn't resist your golf, could you?
Well,
I don't know. You can maintain a pretty safe distance from other humans on a golf course.
Well, yeah, especially if we, every play army golf, left, right. No one's.
They actually walk the course in Britain, in England, unlike in America. Actually,
there's no carts. We're not allowed carts at the moment. Only if you've got a medical certificate or a bad toe like I have, but I didn't take a cart. But anyway, my daughter is currently doing sixth form college online, and she's seeing no reason, with some success, I have to say, which I'm pleased of. She's seeing no reason why she can't go to university online, and the competitiveness of that, it's going to be less. I mean, if she can do 1 year of sixth form college for £2,500 a year, then there's no reason why a university course is going to cost £9,000 a year.
So get to the nitty, just to finish off, Spencer, just to finish off with you. In the next 5 years, how many how many established universities that are running at the present moment, how many of them do you think are going to be facing bankruptcy and just going to end basically?
I think what's going to happen is that those institutions that have existed with really nice campuses, that have been around some time, including like the state schools, University of Illinois and so forth, they're going to move to a patronage model. And what is going to happen is those people who are in the benefit of the 1% or the upper 1% will be using their money to keep those universities in existence for showcases. And the reason is simply because A, they have nowhere else to put their money as a good investment. B, they'll get it as a tax write-off. C, they'll feel good before they die. And D, E, F, G. But at the same time, the universities will not be able to continue charging what they're charging, $7,000 for a 3-hour course that can be taken online, which, by the way, my 19-year-old prefers. I mean, it's just like, why does he want to schlep over to a class and sit bored? And U of I had classrooms of 300 people at a time with one professor. What's going to happen for the mid-tier and the lower schools? Yes, they are going away. In fact, many of my clients and his friends run universities. They're in desperate times because if they haven't been doing online courses, they're thinking about it hard. And if they can't do it, they're just done because there's no way to attract students who are going to buy into this lie. I mean, it's literally like the cell phones. Remember the days when they first came out and it was 25 cents for a text message? Everybody's like, oh, I can send a text message. Imagine trying to charge 25 cents today for a text message. Well, that's what it's going to be like for this generation coming up of saying $260,000 to go to your state school to get a piece of paper you could have gotten online for $5,000 or $4,000 or $3,000.
Right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. I just thought that was an interesting topic, and I loved Scott. He's always makes you think. So I'm going to hit the panel. So Andrew, what's the best way for people to find out more about you, your company, and what you're up to?
Oh, they can't. I don't want to talk to anyone.
Well, after this, you won't.
Elegantmarketplace.com is where I live currently, and somebody'shero.co.uk is my UK agency. But you can find me on Twitter at Arnie Palmer, or you can look for the Page Builders Facebook group, which is where I'm at, really.
Thanks for joining us. You have to join us again soon.
You're welcome.
John Locke. John, how can people find out more about you and your shit story?
Hey, are we doing recommendations?
Oh yes,
today?
I forgot
Okay.
recommendation. Please put your I totally forgot. I apologize, panel. I forgot about. So put it into
you
chat.
can find me. Yeah, we doing that next?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
do your recommendation and tell people how they can find you.
Okay. My recommendation, I got 2 recommendations. Well, first I'm going to say how you can find me. You can find me on Twitter, lockdown_. If you go to YouTube, search Lockdown SEO, you'll find me, or my website, which is Lockdown SEO. Now, I got 2 recommendations. First one is a YouTube video from Michael Harriet. This is The Clap Back, Season 1, Episode 7. Sometimes violence is the answer. And he talks about how white people think that they know the history of Martin Luther King, but he breaks down how a lot of what you believe about the civil rights movement is actually incorrect, because the way that we pass down information, it's gotten muddled. And he breaks down the actual dates that things happened and where in the timeline of the civil rights movement Martin Luther King and his efforts fell. And the second recommendation I have is, if we're talking about schools, if you have kids in school, or if you have kids in college or whatever it is, look at the curriculum for U.S. history or American institutions and ask yourself, like, why did I know that I never heard anything about Black Wall Street or Tulsa being burned down, never heard anything about the Rosewood Massacre, never heard anything, even though I was in high school when it was happening, 1985, Philadelphia dropping a bomb on MOVE headquarters. Yeah. So look at the history curriculum of what's coming up in your schools like now, and ask yourself, why have you never, ever heard about these things? Why have you never heard about Juneteenth?
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Adrian, how can people find out about you? And also, have you got any recommendations for this week?
Yeah, so I'll start off with my recommendation. We were talking a lot about the WooCommerce blocks today, and Andrew mentioned that he's a big Shopify person. Shopify has a far superior checkout experience than WooCommerce does, but
Not if you, but if you use launch flows,
not if you use launch flows. But there's and not to rub it in your face, Spencer. But there is another solution from someone who I went to WordCamp, not WordCamp, but CaboPress with, and it's called Checkout WC. And it basically just rewrites the whole checkout experience to copy the Shopify checkout experience. And it's quite, one of the themes that they offer is actually just called Copify. And it's like the WordPress Shopify checkout experience. And it's very cool. It's very sexy. They processed over 3.5 million in sales through their new checkout experience.
Cool.
And like over like 300,000 sales in total or something. It's quite cool. So that's checkoutwc.com. If you want to find about how you can add those sales to your list and continue to sell to them using CRM and marketing automation, you can go to groundhogwith2gs.io to learn more about that.
That's great. Spencer, got anything you want to recommend? And how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, actually. I actually know the Checkout WC guys, and I agree that, as we just talked about, the end goal is I don't feel like I have some monopoly on this whatsoever. There's several players that are already in the space, and I think it's really the end goal to just get the checkout experience to be universal. There is an interesting thing, by the way, between Shopify and WooCommerce. Shopify is the platform which you don't control. So if you want that experience, it's different than WooCommerce. But then on WooCommerce, yeah, this is a great product. Doesn't do what LaunchFlows does. It gives you a predefined thing and their own gateway, versus WooCommerce being standard and LaunchFlows using Elementor. Nevertheless, a friend of mine, John Denwood, had a webinar with me this week, and it was supported by Adrian and a few other friends because it uses all the key components of Groundhog, Lifter LMS, Elementor, WP Fusion, and we show a stack of stuff that for any business, it's really simple to get up and running if you want to try this method of stuff. I gave you the link here because a lot of people weren't able to attend the event but did come afterwards, and found that this was refreshing to see that, like a white iPhone, in 5 minutes, you can put together a stack of mostly free stuff and get that experience you want without having to go round and around the Home Depot looking to put things in your shopping cart and figure out what you want to do. Instead, just go right to the point. So if you're curious about that, just check out that link, and there's a webinar in the slideshow deck.
That's great. I was going to ask you if you made that live for me. Right.
Do I get to do recommendations after everybody else?
Of course you do.
Yes, of course you do. I'm going to go in and come back to you. I just had a brain fart. Right, Stephen. How can people find out more about you, and have you got any recommendations for this week?
Yeah, head over to zipfish.io and you can check out how we speed up WordPress's websites and how we differ a little bit from most server companies. My recommendation is Adobe XD. I recently hopped into that again this week after not being in there for about 2 years. And where they are now from where they were in the beginning is awesome. So loving where XD is at. And if you haven't checked it out, it's pretty cool.
Well, can you just quickly explain what is XD?
Oh, yeah, sorry. If you ever use like Sketch or it's more for designing or templating web.
It's a prototyping tool.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it.
I have not managed to wrap my head around it adequately, but that's what it is, and it is free. So,
all right.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
That's great. Thanks, Stephen. Put it into the chat, and I'll make sure it's in the show notes. Sally, got anything? How can people find out more about you? And you got anything you want to recommend?
I am at Sally Getch on Twitter and Instagram. My website is wpfangirl.com. My recommendations are: number one, read the book White Fragility. And number two, I just learned that Adobe has a free online image cropping tool. So if you need to, like, if your clients are, not invested in a better level of tool, which many of them are not, but need to crop an image, or you just want to do this quickly, there is an online image cropping tool from Photoshop. So I have dropped that in the chat.
Oh, that's great. It's back to you, Andrew. Got any recommendations?
Well, I'm going to recommend, I mentioned at the top of the show that I sold layoutscloud.com and pagebuildercloud.com. I actually sold my shares in that to a lovely person called Melissa Love, who's a brilliant marketer. She's well known in the Divi ecosphere, and the reason I sold it to her is because she's also works with Sean Barton as well, who's my partner in Page Builder Cloud and Layouts Cloud. And I'm really proud to say that I basically wanted her to buy it. I asked her to buy it. She said yes, and I'm delighted, mainly because she's a brilliant designer and a brilliant marketeer. She uses WP Fusion. She knows all about launch flows and how to get people to buy stuff in carts and stuff. And so she's redesigned the site. So I just want people to support layoutscloud.com and pagebuildercloud.com, because I've put it into safe hands, and I'm really pleased and proud about that as well.
That's great. Put some links into the chat, and I'll make sure it's in the show notes. When it comes to my recommendation, I want to recommend a film that you get online. It's called The Captain. It's a German film made in 2017. It's basically, I'm not going to tell you the plot because I don't want to spoil it, but it's about a German soldier that is a deserter, and somehow he becomes an SS officer on a bizarre journey. And it's based on a true story, and it's a very brutal film, but a very well-made film that really shows the total corruption of German society from top to bottom through this bizarre journey this particular individual did almost at the end of the Second World War, pretending to be an SS officer. And it's just a fascinating, it's just a great film, a great experience, but also it really makes you think because of the storyline, basically. So I highly recommend it. We're having another webinar next month. It's next July the 7th, Tuesday, July the 7th at 9 a.m. Me and Spencer are going to be delving. Hopefully it's even going to be even more hardcore. We're just going to really just delve in right into the meat. And also we're going to have an emphasis on WP Fusion, about how we can use these products with WP Fusion to get some amazing results for you. So join us, go to the WP-Tonic site. On the top navigation, there's a button that says free webinars. So join us for the Tuesday, the 7th of July at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's gonna be a blast. And we had over 50 people sign up for the show, our first webinar. So we'll see you next week, folks, where we have another great panel. I think we've covered some great stories, and the panel's been a blast this week. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.